Thank you, Sabrina. Mike Harris is with the Orchid Conservancy. He's here to talk about whales and particularly the IWC. Let's talk a little bit about today's vote and how big a deal this IWC meeting is.
You know, what this shows today is that the government of Japan has been pretty successful in polarizing the global community on the issue of whaling. It's you know, much like the war in Iraq was a coalition of the willing, this is more a coalition of the purchased, and that's what Japan's been doing year after year, is going after developing nations and promising them aid if they come in and support their vote to end the moratorium on whaling.
Just like that.
Just like that.
How is this affecting other nations?
Well,
particularly, I mean, the U.S. How does it affect the U.S. or does it?
The U.S. is in a really tricky position because the U.S. is officially an anti-whaling nation. I mean, they have come in year after year supporting the continuation of the moratorium on whaling, and yet at the same time we have indigenous people, and it's not just the macaw. We also have Inuits of Alaska
sure,
who are hunting endangered bowheads and have for generations and generations. So the U.S. is in a really tricky spot on this one.
What do you expect to come out? And this is what, is this a 4-day meeting that they're having?
Well,
I know it lasts longer, but they vote on stuff during, I think, 4 days.
I think the interesting thing about this is that it's called the Berlin Initiative. And what this has done essentially is that it has put something on the table for future IWC meetings. It's put stuff on the agenda. And the agenda now is not just how many numbers are in a certain population, and if we go in there and take a certain amount out, will it affect the population?
Right.
Now it's issues of whale watching, pollution, things that are taking whales without throwing harpoons into them.
So I would imagine tribes or anybody else, countries who want to hunt whales, do not want to have that taken into account.
Exactly right. And I think the biggest, Japan has been really the most vocal in saying, we're not going to talk about whale watching, we're not going to talk about pollution, we're not going to talk about the things that are really affecting the population and should be taken into consideration, such as whale watching also, which isn't taking whales, but is providing an alternative to whaling. And so, again, it's not the people of Japan, which is unique because the people of Japan are fully supportive of conservation. There's some of our greatest support as far as orcas go, for example, here in the Pacific Northwest, comes from the people of Japan. It's the government of Japan that is buying out these developing nations and saying, hey, come on board, and if you come on board, we'll give you a little bit of aid next year. I mean, it's Nicaragua, it's, you know, Belize, and some of these other countries.
Well, we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. Mike, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Sabrina?
Greg, thank you. The Macaw Indian tribe can no longer hunt whales off the Washington coast. How a court ruling is overriding their privilege to hunt and how it could affect other tribes. Bob Anderson is a professor at the University of Washington Law School. He also heads the Native American Law Center there. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
You're welcome.
As I said, a federal appeals court ruled that the macaw must stop hunting, at least for now. Is this a step back for Native American rights?
Well, I think it is in particular for the macaw, but also for other tribes because of the mode of the analysis that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals used. They abandoned a long-standing test out of the U.S. Supreme Court that said when Congress is going to restrict the exercise of Indian treaty rights that are reserved in treaty, that the Congress has to speak explicitly to that abrogation of a treaty right. And here the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals stepped over that analysis and said that the Marine Mammal Protection Act limits the tribe's right when the MMPA says nothing about Indian treaty rights on its face at all.
So it kind of opens the door for other treaties to possibly...
For other treaties and affecting other tribes in the Northwest and in the Midwest, but also Indian tribes in general who have many rights protected by treaty that arguably are limited by federal statutes, such as the MMPA, if the Ninth Circuit's holding stands up and is endorsed by other courts. So it could be a big problem.
Do you know, does the macaw plan to fight this ruling?
Well, they filed a petition for rehearing in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they've been joined by about 30 Indian tribes from across the country. And I was heartened to see that the Court of Appeals is looking at it carefully. They asked the other side to respond to the petition for reconsideration, and that's under advisement now at the court in San Francisco.
So, since not all of us know all of our legal issues too well, does that mean this could go all the way up to the Supreme Court?
Well, first we'll get another decision out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and after that, a decision will have to be made about taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court or not.
Are you concerned, though, about the way that this is all developed?
Well, I'm concerned about the Ninth Circuit's analysis. Congress has the power to regulate Indian treaty rights, and it's fine when they do so after a full debate involving the tribes and other affected parties. Here, the Court of Appeals has interpreted a statute that's silent with respect to macaw whaling and Indians in general, and interpreted it to limit tribal rights. So I am concerned about that analysis.
Bob Anderson, University of Washington Law School. Bob, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take your email responses to tonight's Northwest Extra. Just email us at nwresponse@nwcn.com. Again, that's nwresponse@nwcn.com.